Seeing none, the minutes are approved. This is now we're going to move to item 2, Commissioner Boss.
So I have 4 resolutions for you today. These are if you recall, when I was in May, I mentioned that the state budget had additional funds for us that we anticipated for paving projects. State did in fact pass the budget, and we were notified on June 2nd of our actual runs under the various programs. So I'll walk through is what I'm going to hand you in the meantime. These are not up front, just approved literally an hour and a half ago, or I would have emailed them. These are the lists of what we're going to do with the money by category, so that everyone can have theirs.
Care.
And then there's some message we traveled from seeing it. I got want to kill too many extra trees, heavy extras. So the first one is the CHIPS program. So this represents the additional, I think, probably don't remember, but because I know I'm not that interested, but the baseline CHIPS amount that we include in our work plan is what we've seen over the course of about a decade, where the state kind of is, that's the baseline amount. This amount represents what they increased the overall pot by. This is our pro rata share of that, broken out by the formula, which is driven out to all municipalities across the state. Long story short, we're getting an additional 1.871 million, and that is represented in the first resolution. We are required to have, as I mentioned before with the work plan, we're required to have a legislative resolution accepting those funds so that we can spend them, and so the state comptroller will pay the bill. So the first one is CHIPS, and that's 1,871,936. Let me just keep going.
Yeah, I was.
You want to bundle them all together?
Yeah, how did we do in comparisons to past years? You know,
This is a good year, 26,
Okay.
because it's a gubernatorial election, is my guess. So there's gonna be more money in the budget.
in there.
That's why there's POP and EWR and what's New York. They make up these fun apps. But they're all driven by the same formula.
Okay.
And it's driven by road mileage. So, we have 802 miles. So we get the lion's share of the money in the county. The city gets a huge portion as well. And then the towns and villages all get a piece too. So the second resolution is, so that's the first one. Second one is for Pave New York. That's $1,924,970. And that's all the money this year. The third resolution is for what they call the extreme winter recovery. We actually did have a pretty rough winter this year. This was a legislative ad years ago. Now it's become an annual right of spring in Albany, because once you put something in the budget in Albany, it never comes out. And if you eliminate it, it's a cut. If you don't renew it, it's a cut. If you reduce the amount of increase, it's a cut. That's how Albany math works. So EWR is extreme winter recovery. Our allocation is $1,167,993. And then the last one is the fourth one is a pave our potholes program. Again, same formula, same requirements, same standards, and that is $1,283,313. So these are all supplemental state funds that we will drive into the work plan and push out into these projects. We're going to do our level best to get as many of these projects done this calendar year as possible. We are restrained only by weather and when the asphalt plants grows in the fall.
The extreme winter one, is that the piece where we're paving their roads and they're reimbursing us?
No, that we don't actually pave any state roads. That's we plow under contract for the state, and some of the towns and villages plow under contract for us. This is totally separate and distinct from all that. So that's a separate 5-year program that we just renewed with you guys back last month. We had to clean up some of the language to get the dollar amounts right, because we changed some stuff on our side of the ledger. This is just purely state budget money coming into our already existing county DOT budget. So we have a county DOT budget that we do in the fall, because our fiscal year, I believe, is calendar year, right? So we get our budget in October when all the stuff is done here, but we don't have state budget numbers for the following year because their fiscal year is supposed to start April 1st. Rarely does. but we're not held hostage because we fund our program locally. We have bond and cash in our program. And then we also have a little bit of carryover every year because there's just no way you're gonna get everything done every year. With the weather we've had, particularly this spring, it's been very wet. And there's a higher level of competition than there's ever been in my experience right now. There's a lot of material, both asphalt material going to the 81 project and then all the sub-base material going off to clay. So it's super competitive right now to get your hands on any sort of rock, granite material that you need for paving programs.
It's a cost anymore. Sorry.
And there has been escalation on a number of those items too.
So when you go to do the paving projects, I know we had an email exchange, but I just wanted to clarify. When does the complete streets, kind of the space for pedestrians, other
So, and I thought I explained this, but I'll explain it again. I'm glad you brought that up, Nicole. When we do a federal aid project, when we have a bigger project that has a federally eligible road is there's a volume metric that triggers the eligibility for federal money. So most of the roads trying to think, for example, your area, the western kind of part of the city and the town of Gaddis over there, Rich's area, Onondaga, a busy growth area, Clay, Cicero. A lot of those are federally eligible because the volume is over 4,000 cars a day. Elbridge, not so much. Elbridge is very rural, volumes are below 4,000. Most of the roads that are busier and that have high volumes out in an area like Elbridge are state roads anyway. So we apply standard, which is the federal government requires that we look at pedestrian accommodations on every project. So we do that in the context of the state standard, and then what right away we need to get, how expensive is that going to be, what utilities are there, how expensive is it going to be to move the utilities, what demand is there for that type of infrastructure. And then most importantly, is the municipality that the infrastructure is going to be in, are they willing to take custody of that infrastructure once it's built? Because the way state law works, I can send this to you if you don't believe me, the county of Onondaga does not own or maintain sidewalks. We own the roadway and the right of way, and we control the right of way, and we control the utility access, sewers, and everything else, access to all that stuff in the right of way. But the actual sidewalks have to be owned by the municipality. Now, in our county, a lot of the towns are great about maintaining them. Town of Camillus is great. Village North Syracuse is great. But there are towns that absolutely refuse to get involved with sidewalks. Salinas one. We did that beautiful electronics parkway project, putting all new sidewalks under the thruway bridge, Burned Dairy. Are you familiar with what I'm talking about? They don't get plowed. And that's their product.
Can anybody force them?
I don't know. I mean, it's a town. They do what they want. It's still a little state. We don't hold gun to their head. We build them. They own them. Some are grateful and want them there. Others not so much. The bicycle lanes in the right of way. That's kind of a newer thing. The city's been doing a lot of that, and believe it or not, I drive in the city a lot. And we've done, the state did the Erie Boulevard project. We have seen the city do these lanes over on the north side, on Court Street, on Grant Boulevard. I've seen them. I've never seen an actual person using them properly, going in the right direction with traffic on bus. I just came downtown today for this meeting, and there was a kid on one of those e-bikes going the wrong way, weaving in and out of the sidewalk and traffic. So that's about what I see. The answer to your question is that we always, 100% of the time, when we have a project, a capital project where we're going to look at doing something with real money, we always assess the viability of sidewalks, especially when there's school in them. Like, for example, the Onondaga Boulevard project, we're going to put those in with a hopefully multi-purpose section that can be used by bicycles, pedestrians, skateboards, scooters, all that stuff, because it's right in front of the high school. We're going to do it on the high school side, try to make it work with what the school district is doing. And thank you for that. We've already connected with the school district on their capital projects, so we can have the engineers coordinate logistics on that. So those are things we do with every project. We always look for additional, and we hear that, public hearing these things to death. We have multiple public hearings for each project. both at our budget level and then also when we go to do the project, we take input through the whole process. And we consistently hear about the interest for that type of infrastructure. Um, I'll give you a couple other examples. 7th North Street, we're looking to do something there. You know, the battle becomes, and I'm gonna be very candid here, so you guys can understand some of the challenges we face. 7th North Street's a good example. We would like to, it's called a road diet. And what that literally means is squeezing the road down, adding a turn lane in the middle instead of, 4 lanes, and putting in pedestrian accommodations. Saline is another good example. At Teal Ave, we're trying to figure out a way to incorporate that on Teal Ave, because Teal Ave from the city line up to Court Street, it's kind of a mess. And it could be a nice area with parking stalls for the business, for the Linkor Bakery, for 7 places I go. But there's other places there too that people want to go. There's a dry cleaners, there's some stuff that shops there. So we're trying to find reasonable ways to do that when we can. And that's what we do as part of our planning process. Is we look at that in every instance, and in the next couple of years, Teal Ave, 7th North, Onondaga Boulevard, and then obviously the biggest one, I'm going to brag a little bit about is the Loop to Lake trip. That's probably the best, nicest, most highly used pedestrian and bicycle facility that's been built in the county in decades. And that was our project, which we then turn over to the Parks Department when we're done. And as I just mentioned, Chad, you're going to hear from me again next month because we're making some forward progress. 3 yards in a cloud of dust at a time on the next phase of the bridge. We're making the next phase of Gate Lake, which will take that project from Murphy's Island all the way out to Onondaga Lake Park. It's a very ambitious project. A lot of work left to be done, but that's going to be really cool. And that's something that we've heard universally from the community and from legislators of every stripe that they want to see. So we're trying to advance that again. But the sidewalk part of it and the pedestrian accommodations and the bicycle stuff, we look at that everywhere we can. And we're looking at a specific area on 57 for that. The battle becomes whenever the county has tried to reduce roadway width in the past, there's been an outcry from the towns and from the business owners along the Brian Donnelly tried to do it in Camillus and got his head taken off. And they never ended up doing it on West Genesee Street. So we're looking at 57, we're looking at other areas. We're always going to try to find a reasonable way to do that stuff. The drainage infrastructure is actually the biggest obstacle because that's very expensive to replace. But that doesn't mean we're not going to try.
I think the most important part for people to understand is that it's not just about creating bicycle infrastructure, right? It's about what you were talking about with the street diet, making it safer for all different. So if someone has a motorized wheelchair, by giving it that street diet, by putting those, even though no one maybe is using that bike lane, it being there calms the street traffic.
Absolutely.
Right. And so
it's literally what they're called is miles. And that is something that in the areas where you have to have the metrics. So the volume has to be sufficient and the infrastructure has to be restrained.
Right.
Teal Ave is the perfect example of that, where it is literally the volume is increasing, Shop City is getting busier, that corridor is constrained physically by where the buildings are. We're not going to start knocking people's buildings down to widen the road. Only the state does that. But we're going to try to narrow what we can, because if you do drop the speed limit down, have 1 lane each direction with a 2-way left turn lane, then you'll have the ability to put in reasonable parking that isn't a safety hazard for not only the people parking there, but also people, God forbid, trying to walk to the bakery or walk to the deli or whatever. Make sense?
Questions on any of these items?
Just to go back to how these work together, is you've got your budget, and then we got these additional monies coming in, and you said this was for an hour and a half ago. Is that accounting for the UC dollars coming in?
Yes. So
wish list for
it's a revised work plan. So here's the county budget. Here's the state budget. It's not to scale, obviously. So, and then here's the work plan over here. The county budget feeds the work plan. The state budget feeds the work plan. And the work plan carries over from year to year to year to year to year. Because remember, all of our projects take, all of our big federal aid projects take up to 5-year gestation from the minute we have a study that says we need to do something until we cut a ribbon or open it up or whatever. We don't cut ribbons anymore. Nobody cares. Until we get to that point, it's 5 years usually in the fiscal cycle. So the county budget that we do in the fall feeds the work plan. The work plan is like the guiding document that plans everything. So what I gave you last month, 2 months ago when I was here in May, that was us saying, okay, we got our county budget. We've had some time to catch our breath. We know what we have through SMTC. We know what our federal aid projects are, and we have a general feeling on what we're gonna get out of the state budget. So here's what we're gonna do. That's was May. Now today, in June, we have the state budget, and I'm saying, I'm gonna take what the extra money we got from the state, which is what I'm showing you here. We're gonna add that to the work plan, and now all of that comes together. And the work plan has federal, state, and our local money in it. And our local money is both the cash that's in our 960 and the bonding that we do every year. We ask for permission.
This plan counts for.
This is in addition to what we already gave you. And now when we're done, sometime between now and probably Labor Day, Chris Robert and Penny will get together and they'll put all of this into one finalized document and they'll amend it. And I'll send it to county executive and I'll send it to whoever, if you guys want to see it. It'll be housed on our website. Every time we adjust it or increase it, we put it on the website so you can see it. That is an easy way to alleviate a lot of questions that would otherwise come into the office.
Pave our potholes, is that actually potholes or is that just money going?
We don't, yeah, I don't want to. We don't have, we won't let them get to this. We don't let them get to that. When it goes to more paving, we don't let potholes get to the point where people are screaming about it. Ask Greg Ayers.
Okay, perfect. Questions from legislators on these 4 items? All right, I need individual motions. Can I have a motion on it?
I'll make that motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
I'll move. Can I have a motion on B?
So move.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. C. Motion.
Make the motion.
Thank you. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion on B.
Like the, what I got so here for.
Second. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. All right.
Thank you, folks. I'll see you next month.
All right.
Again,
Thank you.
whether I like it or you like it or not. I love it. I know.
We're hoping for July off, so we'll drag everyone in for you, all right, Commissioner?
So what did July off?
I want it. Yeah. Yeah, I want it.
All right, thanks, folks. Enjoy your tour. See ya. Thank you, sir.
All right, we are gonna go to item 1, which is why we're all here, the fun stuff. Commissioner Stone, and we've had Manny Stetson here, who is the executive director of the Erie County Museum. She is just gonna give us a little, 5-minute overview of the work that she does here, and then we're gonna talk about a few things. So,
Perfect. Welcome. Thank you all for making the trek up to this northern edge of downtown. As Chad says, I am the director here at the Erie County Museum. You are sitting in a county facility. The county has owned this building since the early 1960s. The building that we're sitting in right now is the 1850 Syracuse Waylock building. So it just celebrated its 175th birthday last year. It was built to weigh canal boats on the Erie Canal when Erie Boulevard outside the window here was the canal back in the 1800s, all the way until the mid-1900s. The building was owned and operated by New York State at that time. When it stopped being used to weigh canal boats in 1883, it became a state facility for the Department of Public Works, for the DOT. Everybody worked in here until the mid-1950s when they moved across the street to the state office building. At that time, the building was going to be knocked down to make way for some infrastructure projects that are located right outside the window here, with support from the Syracuse Junior League, the Canal Society of New York State, and Onondaga Historical Association. The building was saved for the express purpose of becoming a museum to interpret the Erie Canal. It was the first museum in the country interpreting canal history. And when that happened, the state gave the building to Onondaga County. And so the county has owned the building since that time. So since about, the museum opened in 1962. I Now off the top of my head, do I know about exactly when the transfer happened from the state to the county, but it would have been late fifties, early sixties. The museum has been open to the public since 1962. We, as the name implies, we interpret the history of the Beard Canal and really the whole state's history of this transformative waterway, looking at both the past, present, and going into the future. How the waterway changed and developed cities like Syracuse, but also is still an active waterway. Obviously, we are a maritime museum with no water nearby. But we get to tell the story of how the city of Syracuse has grown and changed, and how Great Boulevard has grown and changed over time. We're very proud of our little museum here. We've got a full-time staff of about 7, part-time staff of 4. The county does own the facility, but the museum employees are employees of a private nonprofit. They're not county employees. We're very grateful to the county for all of the support. I'm very certain this museum would not look like we do without the county support. We do not pay for our utilities. We do not pay for much of our maintenance. Our budget is around $800,000 a year. And that's the highest it's been in a pretty long time. And that's with the county support, it makes it possible for us to do what we do. So we're very grateful for what you guys allow for us to do. Is that okay?
That's great.
Perfect.
Couple of things I just wanted to touch on just to bring everybody up to speed. So, about 250?
250, yeah, so the Erie Canal, the original Erie Canal was constructed from 1817 until 1825, so last year was the end of the canal's bicentennial period, that began in 2017.
And then, just some housekeeping, county stuff, just, I don't think there's been much latitude, but I spoke with, Neshi this week, but, there's some lease stuff, so explain the lease just to the other committee members that I'm paying attention to, but I don't know if that's.
Sure, so, we lease this building, it's actually this building, this building that it's kind of next to the visitors center building, and then that one with the mural on it, that you can see out the window, those are all county buildings that we lease from the county. We got an updated lease from the county in 2018, I believe, and our lease now has just a couple years left. In order for us to apply for a lot of grants, we need to be able to show a long-term lease, and we do not have a long enough lease at this point. Also, the construction of this visitor center building was a complicated project in the early 90s. It was done with state, city, and county support. It was part of the governor at the time's Heritage Area Visitor Center project initiative. There were heritage areas all over the state, and they all got a visitor center. The museum put in a bid and was accepted to become the visitor center. So it was a state project. There was a sublease out to the city, and then the city in turn gave us money to operate this visitor center. I think there was like a 35-year agreement with that, and that has since expired. The city does still provide us some funding to help support the fact that we're open 7 days a week and we do not charge admission. But that sublease is still reflected in our current lease, but doesn't actually exist anymore. So our lease needs kind of a complete review and overhaul. And we're looking to get that done sooner rather than later so that we can seek funding to help support some of our larger projects.
So I think there's been some conversations. I don't think it's a point of contention other than it just needs attention. That it's just needs to do. Yeah. Let's and let's talk about the Cavern.
Yes, so we were included in, I believe it was the 2024 CIP at $1.3 million. Through that process, the project was bonded out, and Holmes King Calquist was selected as the contractor who did a complete assessment of our building. Much of this project started because we got a grant to do a building condition report of the Waylock building, and we hired Randy Crawford at Crawford & Stearns, who came in and did an assessment and just kind of pointed out some of the ways that this 175-year-old building could really use a little judging, needed some refreshing, and sharing that with the county. County accepted and acknowledged that, and then worked to get us included in the CIP. HKK came and did a thorough assessment, found in their initial assessment that there was probably around $4 million of work that should be done on the facilities. Some things were prioritized in there, and there was about $1 million left, and that work is currently not actually right now because I wrap up around 3 o'clock each day. But each day more work is being done here with Bellows Construction is the contractor doing the work on site. You saw Matt go on up to the attic. He's our project manager, site manager. And so work that's being done is largely related to the building envelope. That's where we decided to start. There are some systems and equipment on the interior of the building that still need attention, but we decided to start with the envelope. All around you is some nice freshly painted areas. The paint was chipping all along these windows, and so that paint was all removed. We got nice fresh coats of paint. They're also doing the exterior of the windows. As you came to the museum, or when you drive by, you might notice there's a portion of the museum in the front that's boarded up. That's where our full-size replica boat is. That's where boats were weighed when they came. And it has like a kind of a storefront glass enclosure. It's 40 years old. Technology was old. Plants were growing inside the weigh chamber. And so that whole area is being replaced. There's also some work being done in the attic to support some structural repairs to make it so the attic is a safe place for us to store things. It's a really multifaceted project that I don't know, it's a real joy to come in and see some attention being spent on this building that I care probably too much about. So there's a lot of work being done. We have begun talking with Archie and the rest of the facilities team. I think that there's some internal conversations happening over at facilities about phase 2 of this project. Like I mentioned, HKK identified about $4 million. There was $1 million left. From that initial prioritized amount, there are about $700,000 not accounted for to cover some of that internal electrical systems, some fire systems, HVAC stuff, and then one more external thing is the brick wall that goes around our garden and outside. That is not. It's a retaining wall, but it has some. It actually needs a lot of. It needs to be replaced entirely. So that we're hoping can be a phase 2 of the project. And those conversations are happening right now. My hope is that phase 2 will be included in this year's budget that you guys would see in October. Got my fingers crossed, but I don't have any updates as to whether or not that is going to be a reality or not.
And you just reached out, it's like a couple weeks ago.
A couple weeks ago, I reached out and I heard from Kim Lyons that she and Archie would be talking and meeting, I think, this week.
Any questions regarding the CIP plan or the work that they've done here, or you'll try to do the beginning of the fall? Right. All right.
I just want to say thank you for all the work that you do, especially with the history of the history of all the mountains. I watched this. I've been there a couple of times. I've watched it change over. That's not. It's not fresh. Yeah, I say just walked in here a couple of years back. Birthday. I was blessed to Chairwoman and I, we saw the gold yesterday, so we went and visited. Welcome on behalf of Ononaga. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
It's nice to have Benny's to out for.
Yeah, it is nice to know. Especially as the canal district is being planned as part of the 81 project. So where 81 will kind of end in the business loop coming into downtown Oswego Boulevard, which is once the Oswego canals, will be kind of a gateway into the city. And we see ourselves as kind of the crown jewel of what that gateway will be. And so we're really hoping that by about 2030, much more of the exterior will be spruced up as part of the canal district initiative. And just getting us, we want to shine. We want to really go. I just want to take that for sure.
I have a question. How do you coordinate with, say, the Camillus Canal or the Georgia Museum?
Yep.
And, different things throughout the county.
Yep. So it's a fair bit of work to do that coordination. There's a couple of things that we do. There's a group called the Old Erie Canal Community Working Group, really rolls off the tongue, that meets monthly, usually in Chittenango. And every all of the sites along the canal where it doesn't really exist anymore. So all the way out to Port Byron, as far as Rome, all kind of come together monthly at this meeting to talk about what we're up to and what we're doing. We, especially with Camillus, we're pretty good friends with them. We've known Lisa, who's running the Camillus site now. I've known her for as long as she's been working on the canal. So we coordinate, we work together, we have a lot of respect for each other. We recognize that while we are the most encyclopedic of the Erie Canal Museums, we really do work to tell the story of the whole state and country and the impact of the canal, much larger than just right in Syracuse. But we know that, like I said, we don't have water. Got to send people out to Camillus to see some water, to ride on a boat. So we work to coordinate with them to make sure that our visitors know there's more than just us to learn and hear about the story of the canal. So it's nice to have so many canal sites that we can partner with and reach out to. We also do speaking series, where lots of times we will ask experts from those other sites to come and talk for our audience, and then we are in pretty high demand to go out and talk to their audiences as well.
It's a great potential for tourism in Onondaga County, and I just don't see much coordination. It's too bad in a way.
Okay. I'd love to talk to you about where I guess because we try to do coordination, but there's always room to grow and improve. And it is, when I first started working here in 2010, I was amazed by how much tourist traffic we get. Over 50% of the people who visit the museum are from outside of New York State, not just outside of Syracuse, but from outside the state.
We're one of the few counties that does not have a county historian.
We don't have a county historian. I thought we were, well, I thought everybody had to. Huh. Bob's not the county historian at OHA?
Yeah, we have.
Well, I think we have a contract with that was a private agency to provide some historic.
Yeah.
Information, but as a county governor, we do not have an official historian like most counties have.
Okay.
It ends up coordinating a lot of historical groups in the counties and stuff as a point person.
Okay. Yeah. I know what you mean. Always room to improve, that's for sure.
What did you say? Budget-wise?
Our budget's around 800,000.
And what do you primarily spend on and start there?
Staff. About 75% of my budget goes towards personnel expenses.
How big is your staff?
I've got 7 full-time and 5 part-time.
Are they, what roles do they play?
So there's me as executive director. I've got an operations manager. I've got 2 in my education team. I've got a director of interpretation who's kind of like a curator position. We're bringing on an administrator to help kind of coordinate everyone, and then I have a collections and archives person as full-time. Part-time is custodial, a part-time collections person, and then the visitor services staff for desk.
You mentioned that leases necessary for grants. How much of your revenue is bringing this grant funded?
It's a very good question, but I do not have off the top of my head. Pretty significant amount. A lot of grants fund, like my general operating budget covers predominantly staff. The other projects that we do, we typically find grant funding for. So school field trips, we work to get supported by grants as best we can. Capital projects and exhibits, those types of things we try to find grants to help fund. It's hard to find grants to support personnel. And so that's where a lot of my not grant money goes towards personnel, so because we can find support for any of the other projects that we
And that comes through the non-grant funding is.
So non-grant funding includes Onondaga County provides some general operating support. Our membership base, our donation box at the front desk generates about $7,000 a year. We do just a general annual appeal each year, asking people to donate money. We do have some kind of earned income, and I mentioned our speakers are in high demand. So last year, my staff spoke over 100 times across the state to different entities, and they pay us to go do that type of work. So we kind of piece it all together anywhere that we can.
And I heard you say that admission to this facility is free.
It's free. We have a suggested donation of $12. On average, we get about $7 per person.
The Swartz speaker program.
Yeah.
that working on our,
Oh, yes, yes. So we were very lucky to have a donor. I can't remember if this is the second or the third year supporting our speaker program, and that we do a monthly speaking lecture series. And it's very popular. We were able, one of those pandemic silver linings is that we got pretty good at hybrid programs. And so we have people who tune in to watch our speaker series from all over the country. Some every now and again international as well. And so we get pretty good attendance on site and then even better attendance virtual, watching those programs. We sell annual passes to them as well. And by sell, I mean, people, we have a suggested donation for most everything we do. We offer pretty much everything we can for free, but ask the people to support us if they can. And so some people do and some people don't, and they're all welcome. But those who do help supplement those who can't. And it works. It's a system that works pretty well for us. So I think this year we have about 90 people who have subscribed us to the annual pass. And then we get people to register for the individual programs as well.
Folks, so when we go to take the tour, I've been advised that we can't ask like business questions. Because the meeting will be over at that point. So you can ask questions, but nothing that pertains to like
You can ask me questions about like when the canal opened.
stuff like that. So we'll get them in. All right. Any other questions for Natalie? We do have one other thing before we take the tour.
My pleasure. Thank you guys for coming down.
Chairwoman Watts, you join us.
And pretty much everybody's heard me give this spiel today so far, so I'll try to go faster. Essentially, as we're looking at this budget season, we are planning to have joint committee meetings at the front end. So instead of just Ways and Means hearing the budget presentations from the different department heads, we are looking for those to all be done committee by committee or in partnership with Ways and Means. So as we do that in preparation for it, we are also looking to have every committee member, every legislator have different departments that they're paying close attention to kind of point on. As has been clarified in some questions earlier today, it's not like if you have something particular to your district you want to advocate for that precludes you from doing so, still be encouraged to do so. But there's a number of different kind of requests that we get from the community that may not have to do with one of our districts or be necessarily one that we're as an individual legislator necessarily championing. But we want to make sure that it gets included in the conversation so then that can get connected to the legislator that's running the point. Or it's just about paying attention to what's coming, what's been the norm and what is the norm, so that as we each kind of divide up the big pie of our large budget, that somebody in the room has a really strong sense of familiarity, a deeper dive familiarity with every department. And then those committees will be doing those presentations, and then of course questions to be asked at that point. In particular, I want to underscore that it's particular to the budget. So can to answer your business questions now for the year now. Encourage everyone to be asking program questions now. And because when we get into the budget, that's not really the right time to be asking the questions unless it's something new. So we're teeing up to try to get that as streamlined and smooth as possible so we can get through our budget season in a way that leads us to a winning end for the things that we want for our county. So the flow will go that you will here as the facilities committee, you will have a joint facilities and Ways and Means committee meeting. Then you will have later on the following week or later that week, depending on where the schedule lands, a regular facilities committee meeting, which will cover any business like typical business like resolutions and so forth. And then you will also have on your agenda discussion of the budgets related to facilities. So all the different departments that already we are hearing from to have discussion and at that main level kind of say, this is what I want to see added. This is what I want to see cut. This is what I want to see put in contingency to have that discussion. And then as the committee chair, Legislator Ryan will represent those interests to the Ways and Means Committee on the following Monday.
So you actually do our budget negotiations is is that going to be known to be public negotiations?
So I think I have an anticipation that both things will be happening, right? That at the committee level we'll have discussion. Part of the reason the schedule set the way it is that it allows a weekend for the Friday and weekend to kind of have maybe those conversations that are not necessarily happening at the committee level to wrestle through where there might be some points. So we're trying to allow some room both before and after. So I believe your facilities meeting will be in, the joint committee will be in week 1. Then you'll have your committee meeting in week 2, and then the presentation will be in week 3. So there's kind of some time to have those offline negotiations and conversations. But we're also cueing the public into the process in the discussions that are being had at the committee level.
Ken has already told me he wants the capital plan to have 700K for the region.
Thank you so much.
So we got one vote for it so far.
It's good. Camillus?
So be watching for an email headed your way with the proposed schedule and the matches.
Thank you, Chairwoman Watts. Seeing as there is no business, can I get a motion to adjourn this meeting to the next month? So moved. And a second. Thank you so much. The motion is carried. All right, great. Motion is carried. 3:41 on June 16th. So much, everyone. Time for a tour. Hey, Chris, why don't you have next?
Well, yes, yeah.
Aren't you?
I knew it was
going to see about some road control, right?
Running.
I'm ready to-
Not these registration. I don't, you know, think vanilla more money. Like this.
That's right.
Yes, you're gonna do some.